What started as a high-revving 4-cylinder race car built to dominate morphed into a twin-turbo 4-door sedan with a botched nose job. The boys at BMW have delivered 6 incredible generations of the top-of-the-line 3 Series, and they are all rated M. Whether you're racing, drifting, rallying, hooning, looking for a tuner car hero, or a classic garage queen, M is always the answer. The car is the BMW M3, and this is the death of a legend. As it sits, the current G80 is the biggest, baddest, most powerful, most fire-breathing version of M3 to date. This Munich masterclass isn't the stripped-down race car 3 Series of yesteryear, it's got tech on top of tech, luxury on top of even more luxury, and wind tunnel nostrils. Love them, hate them, this M3 is pure magic. Plus, with one of the best engines ever developed, this M3 has tons of power. The M3 Competition packs 503 horses, and the X-Drive gives you a selectable all-wheel drive. Spring for the creme de la creme CS version, and you're looking at 543 horses out of an extremely tunable 3-liter twin-turbo inline-6. Now, this M3 isn't technically a race car, but BMW made it their best impression of one. Adaptive dampers, thick fender flares, optional carbon buckets, and a manual transmission. This transforms a pedestrian 3 Series into a true driver's car, something we weren't sure BMW knew how to do anymore. The head of M Division's development, Dirk Hacker, is the mad scientist behind this tech-forward experiment gone right. From lightweight wheels, specific axle tuning, steering calibration, and the addition of massive tires, the G80 M3 grips better than any generation before it, which is expected. But what's unexpected is this M-Missile feels like it's putting down 700 horses instead of the claimed 5. But don't worry, you can still drift this thing's face off. In fact, the optional M-Drive Professional package gives your M3 a drift analyzer, scoring each of your drifts on a 5-star basis, bringing your Forza skills to the real world. And I know, it's kinda a gimmick, but it's really fucking cool. The base M3 is only offered with a manual transmission. Hallelujah, brothers. As for the comp and CS trims, well, it only gets an 8-speed auto. But even though it's not a trick dual clutch and rather a tried and true slush box with a torque converter, you'd never actually know it. This is the 6th generation in a long lineage of M badges, and there is so much more to this story.
If you're a BMW guy or an enthusiast at all, you should know the BMW 2002. No, not a 2002 BMW 3 Series. The BMW 2002 from 1968. This was the car that inspired the 3 Series from the get-go. It was compact, but with room for 4. Economical, but still reasonably powerful. It was handsome, well-made, and above all else, it was a joy to drive. And yes, I'm still waiting for someone to dump an S58 into theirs. The 02 was a shortened, sportier version of the BMW New Class 4-door sedan. The 2002 sold well, but buyers' wants and needs were evolving, and by the mid-70s, BMW's most accessible car was riding on a platform that was nearing 20 years old. The New Class itself was evolved into the midsize 5 Series, and the smaller, less expensive 2002 was replaced by the car we know today as the 3. The E21 3 Series created trends that we still see on BMWs to this day. It had one of the first optional competition packages, complete with upgraded suspension. It cemented the Hofmeister kink in the C-pillar as a design element staple, and it was the very first BMW to have a dashboard angled towards the driver. If BMW couldn't quite match the luxury and prestige the competition over in Stuttgart was churning out, then they'd chase another vertical instead: driver's cars. Its reasonably powerful 4-banger and handsome looks made it a great little car. But I'd bet my left ass cheek you've forgotten about it for a while. And that's because of not one, but 2 cars that came after the E21, BMW's own E30 M3 and the Mercedes-Benz 190E. See, Mercedes had internal conflicts about fuel economy and market share, and in the late 70s, they developed the W201, aka the Baby Benz. It was compact, good on gas, and had hundreds of millions of dollars of development behind it, because Mercedes was banking on making the 201 sell. The top-tier 190E in particular got a special engine from Cosworth, further suspension tuning, and some sexy aero add-ons. Even though the engineers promised none of it was meant to make the car go racing, Almost immediately, it found itself terrorizing the track. And mind you, this was all before the next Gen 3 series had even begun production. In fact, the 190E 2.316 is the reason the E30 M3 even exists. See, BMW had just spun up the M division under instigation from Bob Lutz to handle all things motorsports. And the passenger car division was busy developing the second generation 3 Series. But M's first car, the M1, was a total financial disaster. And if M was gonna be sticking around, their second attempt needed to set the world on fire. Something lighter and more agile to take the fight back to Mercedes. So the M boys did the unthinkable. Fueled by pure rage, they stripped a pedestrian 3 Series down to the bare chassis and carefully morphed it into a mechanical beast, a race car capable of street duty. You know, the homologation rules and all that. But more importantly, a race car built to slay the 190E. Under the hood, BMW positioned the tried and tested M10 block. It was expanded to accommodate the cylinder heads from the iconic M1 supercar, which themselves had been adapted from none other than Formula 1. And then the whole thing was cut down to just 4 high-revving cylinders. And they did all this with a fraction of Mercedes' budget, in just 2 weeks' time. The E30 M3 hit the market in 1986 and rewrote the definition of domination. And despite the corporate backing and big money advantage of the Mercedes, the E30 took it to school in the DTM series and pretty much every other racing series there was.
If the first M3 is the one that defines the model, then the E30 M3 was technically the only real M3 ever produced. The M in M3 means motorsport, and the E30 M3 was designed and homologated specifically to compete in touring car championships. It's a killer grassroots built race car. It essentially benchmarked everything from the Mercedes 190E Cosworth and aimed one tick higher in every single category. The engine, 2.3 liters, just like the Merc, made 10 more horsepower. Acceleration, the M3 beat the 190E by 0.2 seconds. Cheeky. And then it went out and slapped that $100 million Mercedes suspension with good old-fashioned BMW engineering for pennies on the dollar. I mean, hell, the M engineers even had to add height on top of the trunk lid and length to the C-pillars just to get the aero to work. They went all out to get any advantage over the boys at Benz. Boy, oh boy, did it work. People tuned in from all over the world and saw this dominant sports car and ran straight to the showroom floor, right? Wrong. The M3 flew on the racetrack, but didn't exactly fly off the shelves. It was more expensive, louder, less comfortable, and had a smaller engine than the then current 325s. Not to mention, in a straight up quarter-mile drag race, it was barely quicker. And customers said, "For the less money, I can get the car without the weird fenders and the bigger engine. No thank you." Which is part of the reason why the E30 M3 is so desirable now. Limited units, a visceral driving experience, and the true racing heritage. We may not have bought one 40 years ago, but now, anyone want to buy a kidney? Trav? Anyone? Hey, sorry to interrupt, but we have 2 limited MTs available right now. The orange is the new black, and my personal favorite, the Endless Project. Both are linked below. Buy one to join the ideal fam, and when they're gone, they're gone. Now, back to the show. A new body, a new, larger engine, 6 cylinders, 282 horses, solid lifters, individual throttle bodies, and torque for days. Plus a 6-speed manual transmission for maximum fun. This was like the sales-proof E30, but on paper, it was better in every way. Except they were never going to come to the USA. That special E36 with that even more special motor was a forbidden fruit here in the States. In fact, we weren't even going to get an M3 here at all. They wanted to kill the M division for the US entirely. Except, well, we had this guy. Meet Bob Romer, an influential columnist for BMW CCA's magazine, The Roundel, who pretty much single-handedly saved M3s for North America. Furious and probably thinking his wife couldn't be the only one rated M in the garage, he wrote a letter to BMW NA's M brand director, Eric Wensberg, seductively encouraging them to build one, yes, just one for the US, and had all his M3 loving followers write in hundreds of letters asking for the same. And thank you, God, Wensberg, he listened. In order to make this happen, he had to take out the S50 B30 from the Euro M3 because it was so expensive to produce, and in its place went the regular M50 from the 325i, well, with some upgraded cams and larger displacement. The result? Sales, baby. The North American E36 sold. I mean, it sold out. Unlike the previous car, it was priced reasonably, a measly $3,000 more than the 325iS. And even without the full M engine, it performed nearly as well as the Euro version. Other than the drivetrain, everything else was carefully crafted by the M division. And I mean, yes, all the body panels are shared with the regular 3 Series, but the steering, the suspension, the bumpers, the brakes, the wheels, even the freaking Vader seats, yes, there is an ass for every seat, were all bespoke M performance. It won Automobile's Best Car of the Year and was among Car and Driver's Best 10 cars every single year it was on sale. Those are Michelin Phelps numbers, folks. Michael Phelps. This time it was a road car that could go racing, but not the other way around. Plus, you could get it in a sedan or a convertible if you like it topless like Trav. But of course, the grail car was the coupe. It goes down as the car that saved the M brand entirely and set new standards for what an M3 should be. But it left us all questioning, what if they built an M car from the ground up? This time, nothing, and I mean nothing, was watered down over the European version. Not the engine, not the suspension, and not the big, beautiful fender flares. The E46 is so sexy, it makes me want to do things that are reserved for other parts of the internet. But the real focal point of this M3, in one phrase, is the S54 B32, the straight 6 from the gods. It revved to 8,000 RPM. Once it warmed up, pumped out 333 horses and made a raspy shriek that sounded a lot like nothing else the M division had ever created. It featured a double Vanos variable valve timing system, 6, yes, count them, 6 independent throttle bodies, and this high compression naturally aspirated screamer is one of only a handful of engines to ever hit that magical mark of 100 horsepower per liter. The suspension, chassis, steering, almost everything was reworked from the non-M version. In fact, all said and done, when you compare the two, only 20% of the parts were carried over from the regular car. It was art. And in its day, it was one of the hottest cars on the planet. The E46 came with a stunning updated interior, as well as a 6-speed shift-it-yourself manual, or an F1-inspired automated manual as an option, just like you got in a Ferrari. And while everyone wants the regular good old 6-speed now, the SMG back in its day was a pretty big deal. Now, on the streets, the E46 M3 culminated with the M3 to end all M3s, the CSL. It made 360 horsepower, had more aggressive suspension, and weighed an absolute insane 3,053 pounds, over 400 pounds lighter than the regular M3. Take that, Jenny Craig, and if you want one, well, good luck. And if that wasn't enough, well, there was this, the M3 GTR. Developed specifically to go to battle in the GT class of the American Le Mans series. The M3 GTR came equipped with a 4-liter naturally aspirated V8 capable of making up to 700 horsepower if left unrestricted. To meet compliance for racing, BMW was forced to build 10 road-going versions. And I swear to God, if you or someone you know knows where one is for sale, hit me up on Instagram. I would sell both of my lungs for one. Unfortunately, the rules got changed again the following year, requiring 100 homologation cars be produced as well as 1,000 engines. And in an instant, all that money, time, and engineering was all for nothing. Until EA Games, the folks building the Need for Speed video games, decided to use it as the hero car for what just might be the best Need for Speed game of all time. And like that, in an instant, the M3 GTR did more marketing for BMW in the M division than the real race car ever would have. Like a bratwurst wrapped in bacon, this German throws down American style, homeboy. This was new ground for the company that had made the inline 6 part of its whole identity for decades. For the very first time, the M3's horsepower numbers passed 400. It was bigger, faster, and meaner than all the other M3s that came before it. We're talking a 4-liter, 8,300 RPM, 420 horsepower V8 monster that bulged out from under the hood. Like, literally, there's a hood bulge to fit it. It's not a dick joke. This engine was legit inspired by and designed in the same factory as the BMW Sauber Formula 1 engines were, which is why the engine actually weighed 33 pounds less than the E46's straight 6, even with 2 more cylinders, 2 doors, 4 doors, convertible, wagon. Just kidding, they didn't actually ever build a wagon, although that would have been sick. The finicky SMG gearbox was thrown out the window and replaced with a new dual-clutch version, and inside, BMW's controversial iDrive system could be fitted for an additional price, although I don't know why you'd pay that. While it was a sharper M3 in almost every way, it also got more luxurious. There were special models like the M3 GTS and the 4-door CRT, both of which were lighter, had more power, and a rad aero package. Over the years, the S65 V8 won 5 consecutive International Engine of the Year awards, and the E90X M3s as a whole proved to the world that the letter M was unstoppable. And yeah, it's not perfect. Throttle control actuators, rod bearings, lack of low-end torque. There were some trade-offs, but carving up a canyon behind the wheel of an E90 M3 is about as close to automotive perfection as you can get. In the 2010s, BMW realized they had taken naturally aspirated performance as far as they could for a road-going M car, and it marked the death of the high-revving naturally aspirated M DNA the world had grown to love. We did lose a couple of cylinders, but gained a couple of turbochargers. We lost the M3 Coupe too. That was now badged as the M4. Don't know why they did that. The F80 M3 came with a smorgasbord of changes, but the most important part was that it set the stage for how the M3 would be for the foreseeable future. You know, twin-turbo inline-6 engines, sedan only, a slew of new customization options like colors, carbon vents, blacked-out grills, and M decals. This M3 was a cohesive badass from the start. BMW engineers said that during development, not one single department worked on its own at any given time. It was a company-wide, all-hands-on-deck collaboration to make sure this car met its goals, which is pretty damn cool, if you ask me. What were their goals, do you ask? Well, weight reduction and drivetrain. The S55 engine puts down 425 horsepower and just over 400 foot-pounds of torque. The car comes standard with a 6-speed manual or an optional 7-speed dual clutch. Redline comes at a respectable 7,600 RPM, and 60 comes just in 3.9 seconds, or less time than it took me to say that. And if you spent a little bit more cash back in the day, you could get the competition pack with 444 horses and some more M performance goodies. And let me just say,
let me tell you something else, man.
The F80 M3 is one of the better looking ones in the last couple of generations. I mean, the most recent one is, well, let's just chat about that in a sec. And the E90 is handsome, but doesn't capture the athleticism and attack-ready look like the F80 does. I don't know, what do you guys think? What's the best looking M3 gen? Let us know down below. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us back to the G80. The balls-to-the-wall psychopath we talked about earlier with its alien-level acceleration and borderline race car performance. And look, any enthusiast who doesn't already own a Bugatti would kill to own one of these big boys. I mean, I would, but there's something bittersweet about this generation. Like many of our current favorite sports cars, this thing is closer to death than ever before. And of course, BMW will probably always have a car that wears an M badge on the back and literally everywhere else that it can possibly fit one, but it won't be the same. It'll probably have an electric option. I mean, BMW themselves have stated a fully electric M3 is coming, and enthusiasts are worried about it too. See, the legacy of pure fire-breathing, Mercedes-whooping, stick-shifting fun is running out of time. And the G80 here, well, it serves as a symbolic farewell to the M3 as we have known it for the last 40 years. Because after they exhaust the full performance of twin turbos, what's next? If the M3 falls victim to the EV movement, well, at least the one that we have now is a proper send-off. Thank you all for watching the M3 Death of a Legend here at Ideal. We're curious to know which generation is your favorite and why so. Sound off in the comments below. Otherwise, we're hyped to bring you more videos like this and more to the channel. So get subscribed and don't miss anything. Turn on that notification bell, and if you enjoyed the vid, please hit the like button. It helps us out a ton. Check out these Ideal videos over here. I'm Brad, this is Ideal. Can't wait to see you next week, and promise me one thing, keep living the Ideal lifestyle. It's filmed in front of a live audience, aka Trav.